Hello folks, today I want to show you how to replace an alternator on a Land Rover, and for this is the easiest alternator I ever replace or remove, and for that we'll show you the process and we'll show you the tools. And with that said, let's start it. Land Rover alternator off, which is really easy, is right on top, but for that you have to do some magic with a belt, and for that we have to engage ourselves with a 50 millimeter socket, so we can get the tensioner to loosen tension and we can get this belt off of the alternator. So we have to get the tensioner is actually over here, the base, and that's a spring loaded, and there's this column grows out, as you can see, to the side, and we have to engage it from there to put some lever into it, and then once we turn, or you see the movement, and then once we do that, the belt loses tension because there's no pressure into it, and we can unengage it from the alternator. We have undone our belt. We can undo our tie down points, which is this one. This is a 13 millimeter, and there's another one down there. You can see a 13 millimeter as well. So there's 2 points that are tightening down this 1, 2 13 millimeter nut. Bottom one is easier to fit a 13 millimeter ratchet wrench. Bolts out to remove, or we can remove the alternator. And the bottom bolt, you're gonna have to put it right between the fan so you can take it completely out. Have our alternator out or disconnected. I wanted to show you this in an angle, to what to look for before you do this. You want to disconnect this guy off and then undo your electrical, and for that we gotta uncover it. Wires, to uncover those wires, you gotta press right here in this point, press it and lift, and once you get that done, you got your hardware tie down points here. You got your main battery going to the battery, and there's this little wire right here, and you want to unbolt those so you can get those wires unconnected. So to take that one off, it's a 13 millimeter nut, so we take it off. And for that nut right in the middle, which is holding the other wire, the last one is a 10 millimeter socket. And that nut stays right in that wire. It's like the special nut that it stays on that wire, so don't worry about that. So at this point we have removed everything, the alternator from the base, the wiring, so now we can extract it. And this is for a Land Rover alternator removal. Put the alternator back in the Land Rover. So what we do is we set it and present it where it needs to go. So now we guide our bolts, start tightening it down. So first do your bolts and we'll do the wiring at the end. So what I experienced is that if you put the top bolt first and then you start guiding the bottom one, is easier because you can do always do the ones you can see, and the ones you can't see or it's a little harder. Try to get the other guys to help you on guide the other one. So that's what I did. I fit this one first, and then I fit that one, and this guy helped me guide that one because I moved the alternator side to side or up and down. We put our bottom nut into the bolt, and these are 13 millimeter. And now what we do, we tighten our top nut. Now we tighten our bottom nut, 13 millimeter, and I found that this is better with a wrench. And when you're tightening your nut on the other side, make sure your bolt doesn't spin on this side, because otherwise you'll be spinning the whole unit on the nut and bolt together. We have tightening our bolts down. The next thing, it will be put our wires on the back, connect everything on the wire side, and then we'll put our belt on, and that should finish the procedure of replacing or removing the alternator and putting a new one on a Land Rover. So folks, we have installed our alternator. We put the wiring back on, everything's tied down, and we cover it back up. So now what's left is we gotta put the belt over the alternator, and that is the last thing we gotta do. With our 15 millimeter socket on a ratchet, we put it right over that pulley bolt, and we backing it all the way out, and we pull towards the driver's side, and that gives the tensioner moves down, and we can put our belt right over the pulley of the alternator, and then we release once we got everything in there. Do it slowly so you don't hurt yourself and you don't get your fingers between the belt and the pulleys. So be careful. Make sure this socket is all the way in so you don't slip and then you hit yourself and you get injured. So now that you have put the pulley or the belt over the pulley of the alternator, now you just inspect and make sure that the belt is all the way in on top of the pulleys, so you don't end up turning on your car, your engine, and the belt spits out, and then it damages something else, and then now you gotta go back in there, or even probably replace some other items or the belt because you didn't put it right. So you gotta inspect that belt is right on the grooves. And see folks, when you're doing the taking off the tension, this is what happens to the belt. It loosens and relaxes itself, but once we release the tensioner, there's a tension. Relax, tension. So this is what we're looking for when we're gonna remove the belt. And the tools needed for this, folks, it was just a ratchet, 3/8 drive, a 15 millimeter socket for the tensioner, and then this is a telescopic extendable, so I can adjust the length of it just by pulling in this little lever, so I can have a longer one or shorter handle. So I like this ratchet because of that. And then we use the 13 millimeter socket for the nut on the bolt, but usually we use that for this top one and for the nut on the back of the battery cable. And then for the other cable we use a 10 millimeter. And then for this nut in the back over here in the bottom. We use a 13mm ratchet wrench. Really useful. And I use this Milwaukee 3/8 drive M12 for the jobs to make it a little bit quicker wherever I could have access with it. So that's all the tools that you really need for this. You don't need any special tools. So that's all we use. Well, folks, I hope you have found this video info useful towards your replacement on an alternator on a Land Rover, and we'll see you soon with more videos here en el canal de Chano Jose.